Բարի երեկո սիրելի բարեկամներ։ Այսօրվա մեր թեման են Երուսաղեմի հայության հարցը, որ ասկի առաջ մենք երկար խոսեցանք եւ այսօր մենք հյուր ունենք Երուսաղեմեն պրոֆեսոր Լոյի, որ պիտի բացատրե մեզի ինչ է գացություն այսօր։ Ինչպես գիտեք, բավական լայնածավալ լուրեր եկավ Երուսաղեմեն այս հարցին մասին վերջին ինտերվյու որոնք եկեցական մարդու հետ որ բացատրեց այս հարցերը, բայց նորեն այս թեմային նորեն մենք կվերադառնանք եւ խոսենք։ So հիմա պիտի դառնամ իմ հյուրիս եւ պիտի այս թեմայի մասին խոսենք անգլերենով։ Welcome to our show. I'm Mike Sarian. As you know, my show is a very popular Armenian show regarding the issues we face. We're going to discuss in detail the current situation in the Armenian quarters in Jerusalem and what is called Cow's Garden, Goveru Bardes, the issue there and what is going on. So maybe you can explain that to our audience, your thoughts, and welcome to the United States, by the way.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me. Well, let me start by correcting that the story is not the story of the Goveru Bardes only. The story is the story of Jerusalem. The story is the story of land grabbing, the story of dispossession of land from the non-Jews in Jerusalem. So it's about the Judaization of the space. Now, in relation to the Armenian quarter, according to what we know so far, and as I have explained before, the problem is that we do not have all the details, but what I have as a researcher who studies Jerusalem, I can tell you that even in the 1983, 1984, there was a plan. And the plan was to change the nature of the Armenian quarter and the Armenian part of Jerusalem. We are 14% out of the total area in the old city of Jerusalem. And I'm only talking about the old city because the story of land grabbing and dispossession is also in other places. Only in April 2022, our patriarch, the Armenian patriarch, plus the patriarch, the other patriarchs in Jerusalem wrote a petition against the Israelis where they wanted to dispossess land in the Mount of Olive where we have the different churches. We have Sitna Maryam, the area where there's a major Armenian church, Gotmali and others. So the story is the story of Jerusalem. And as you can, as others would know, Sheikh Jarrah area is also about land grabbing. Silwan is about land grabbing. It's about changing the nature. So what you're saying,
this is not something just showed up. This is going on for a while,
Definitely.
Trying to grab the Armenian controlled lands in the Holy Land.
Definitely. And I also want, as a background, to remind everybody that attacks against Christians, against Armenians, against the cross, against the Armenian flag did not start today. I'm a researcher who studied something called price tag, which is the attacks, the destruction, and the vandalism over our homes, our houses, our walls. If you look at around my house in the old city of Jerusalem, in the Armenian quarter, it's written in graffiti, Armenians out. So everything
so
was.
Hate
so there
Armenians.
is, it's beyond hate, it's racism. It's racism against non-Jews. So Christians are targeted this time. This time it's the Armenian quarter. And the Armenian quarter was targeted long time ago. Long time ago because even some of the patriarchs, and this is according to Armenian historians like George Hentelian, explained clearly that there was an attempt assassination of the Armenian patriarchs that refused to cooperate with the Israelis.
The current patriarch?
Not the current patriarch, but Dardarian, the one before. So what we know from the history of the Armenian existence in the old city, that the Armenians were always targeted. The problem lately, so the story is a story of playing with law, and playing with law to Judaize the space. And of course, we are using the law, but the law is serving the not the Armenians, but rather the Jews. So that's number one. It's a biopolitical story because demographically, Armenians that are living in the Old City of Jerusalem are residents and not citizens, which means, as you know, Israel has different laws. Armenians that were born in Jaffa, Haifa, and so on are Israeli citizens. Armenians that were born in Jerusalem, like my husband, Dr. Gabi Kevorkian, is a resident. And those that came...
So, I mean, just to clarify, the residents have no right to participate in Israeli vote or elected and so forth.
And their residency can be revoked any minute, which means there is all the time there is a threat on Armenians that misbehave to be evicted from Jerusalem. So even if you have property, if you lose your residency, you lose your ability to reach Jerusalem.
But you are, Ms. Kevorkian, you are a citizen of Israel.
I was born in Haifa.
You're born in Haifa.
I was born in Haifa.
You're born in Israel proper. And so you have the rights as any other Israeli citizen. Am I correct with that?
Not the right of any Israeli citizen, but I am a citizen, which means I can argue differently than my own husband. I am treated differently in airports. I am treated differently, and I cannot be as threatened like Armenians that are residents.
Residents, okay.
So you
two standards there, basically.
Yeah, and I think that so Armenians that are living in the Old City and are residents can be threatened by the Ministry of Interior, can be threatened by revoking their residency, can lose their ability to move, and so on. And that is a major component to take into consideration. Add to all this that the Armenian history is not respected by the State of Israel. For example, acknowledging the Armenian genocide. I'm a scholar who studies genocide. Can you believe that till now the State of Israel did not acknowledge the Armenian genocide?
Why do you think that's the case? Why is Israel, even the United States of America, recognize the Armenian genocide? There's so many countries in the world, France, Europe, recognize Armenian genocide. Is it because Israel has a cozy relationship with Azerbaijan, gets all its oil from there? Is it money?
That's another layer of analysis. Israel is not acknowledging the Armenian genocide because of political and economic gains. So they are not looking at us as people that can be acknowledged. And the victimhood of Armenians, and I'm recalling here the words of my mother-in-law. And my mother-in-law kept on saying, and every year on April 24th, she went to the Israeli Knesset demanding the acknowledgement of the Armenian genocide. So they do not understand our history. They do not know nor acknowledge the Armenian genocide. And during the war on Artsakh, Israel participated in supporting Azerbaijan. The last 2 weeks of the war was devastating to us as Armenians, and it was because of the involvement of the State of Israel, of the United States and Turkey in supporting Azerbaijan against the Armenians. So when we are talking about our situation today in the Old City of Jerusalem, you need to remember that they're not counting us politically, they're not counting us demographically. Geographically, they think that God gave them the land and we should be evicted from there. Legally, their residency status is really a major, major issue. And this state is a settler colonial state. What is settler colonialism? Settler colonialism is a structure, which means everything works to serve that whole structure, legally, economically. If you look at who bought or who came to convince the patriarch to take 25% of the land in the Old City, you know that he is also part. Everybody is saying there's a millionaire from Australia, a Jewish millionaire. The story is much more than this. He's working with the municipality is working with the government is working with the settlers believe, and the government believed that this land, God gave them the land, and anyone else should be out. And Armenians definitely should be out because they believe that these are not locals. Although Armenians in the Old City are the natives. You know, my husband was born, his family is there for almost 2,000 years. So when you think about it, you think about the suffocation of the Armenians in a condition whereby the state is economically trying to really asphyxiate them. My 3 daughters are not in the country.
They left the country.
They left. They want to live their life. They want to breathe. They want to be able to move. They want to be acknowledged. Wearing a cross is a problem. Calling yourself a Kevorkian is a problem. So, and if you look at our kids, our youth, we have, for example, 3 youth clubs. One of them is also attacked. So when you look at, I want to go back to the story because you asked me, but Mutuna Inche, what is
What's
the
the
story?
history? Yes.
So historically we were there, but historically Armenians in the old city of Jerusalem were targeted. They were targeted because the state is interested in grabbing the land, Judaizing the space. And when you look at the old city, think about a square. The old city is divided into 4 quarters, the Muslim quarter, the Christian quarter, the Armenian quarter, and the Jewish quarter. Now, in the Muslim quarter, they have different settlements. Ateret Kohanim and Elad are evicting Muslims, evicting Palestinians out of their homes by force, by law, whatever. They're using, as I told you, it's a structure. They're using all the means. In the Christian quarter, it happened, and the patriarch, actually our patriarch, stood by the Greek Orthodox patriarch because the Petra Hotel was also taken from the hands of the Greek Orthodox Church, which is the entrance of Jaffa Gate. And you need to remember that in order to reach the Jewish quarter, you need to pass from Jaffa Gate through Zion Gate into the Wailing Wall. Yeah. Now, Jaffa Gate, they took over part of the land. If you you continue, there's the police station. The police station belongs to the Armenian Patriarchate. It belongs to the Armenian community. But it's an Israeli police station. All the area after the police station is the area that is now we're negotiating, and we're not sure what this patriarch and his system have signed. But it's more than that. It's not only the police station, the different shops, the seminary where the priests are studying, there's also a cultural center, and then the Govarum Bardez. In front of it, there's an Armenian graveyard. And the fact that Armenian dead bodies are being moved to be given to a Jewish settler is very, very, very upsetting. We have also the Armenian, the genocide museum there that was also part of the deal. We have the clinic. There's a Bardez, a major Bardez there. So the story is much more. The story is not only the Govarum Bardez, which is one side of the street.
The whole area.
The story is also inside the walls of the convent. And that is extremely upsetting. And that tells you that there's something that happened that is, of course, part of the settler colonial plan. And when I explained, I said it's a structure because the Ministry of Education is invading, trying to give help to the school. The Ministry of Antique is invading, trying to see what kind of antique. For example, in the Govarum Bardez, they found a church while they were digging to turn it into a big parking lot. While they were digging, the Ministry of Archaeology came and they found a Byzantine church there. Also, in front of the Norshenk, where we live, there is also a church that was discovered, and they also turned it into a parking lot. That tells you that they are erasing the existence of any traces of Christianity, and definitely traces of Armenians.
This type of action should raise a worldwide outrage. There's billions of Christians out there in this world. This is not just an Armenian quarter being sold or leased under these auspices. I mean, you're going to the heart of Christianity. I mean, there's billions of Christians in the world, not just Armenians, let's say, 2,000 Armenians in Jerusalem. So this is a major issue. I don't see this outrage. Is it because nobody knows about it? This was done so quietly? What is the issue?
Well, I think that I'm not inventing the wheel when I'm telling you that attacks on Christian is hard at work inside Palestine. The attacks on Christians, the attacks on Christian churches, and if I will only look at our area alone, Zion Gate is one of the gates of the old city. Outside it, we have the Church of the Last Supper, where Jesus had his Last Supper. Exactly there is something called David Tomb, Kever David. Now that area is packed with settlers. They tried to burn our church a couple of times. Burning churches not only there, they tried to burn churches in different places. They tried to, and if you only take, like, again, the Armenian street, the quarter from Jaffa Gate all the way to our building, which is the North Shank, you can tell that there was a big cross. And the big cross was exactly kind of the entrance to the Armenian side. The Israeli government asked the Armenians to cut that cross. So because the Jewish settlers refused to walk under the cross. Now, I come from Haifa. My house, I was born in a church called the Savior's Church, Knisset al-Mukhallas. We also had a big cross. And at one point, my late dad, ended up, because they kept on spitting on the cross, he ended up cutting it. The same happened in the Armenian quarter. So I think that the story is the story of Palestine, is the story of land grabbing, is the story of really, and Armenians should really center it around it. And but
we're going to take a short break. Hold your thoughts. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll discuss in detail. I know it's a whole picture, but just say the latest issue that's popped up and what happened there. Սիրելի պայգամներ, գարշ թաթարմը բիդարնենք և բիդի վերատանանք մեր հայդակրին։ Սիրելի պայգամներ, այսօրվա մեր թեման է Երուսաղեմի հայկական հարցը, մեր հետն է պրոֆեսոր Գևորգյան Երուսաղեմեն եւ այդ թեմային մասին մեզի կբացատրե ինչ է գացություն այսօր Երուսաղեմի մեջ. Just before the break, we were talking about the whole issue. It wasn't just grabbing a garden, so to speak, the cow's garden. It's just a bigger picture. The whole issue of trying to kick the Armenians out of Jerusalem, which we've been there over close to 2,000 years since Jesus Christ's time. Now, it's a political issue that is popping up as a land deal. But however, this latest episode that popped up is specifically related to this area, which is leased to an Australian Jewish company or owner for 99 years. What happened here? This specific point. Do you know the facts behind it? Because nobody's seen the contract. There may be no contract, who knows? Maybe there's not a final deal, that's I heard also. But what is the issue that we need to understand it as Armenians worldwide? Because this is not just an issue of Jerusalem, Armenians, this is an issue for the entire Armenian nation, maybe for the entire Christian nations across the globe.
Well, I think that number one, we need to remember it did not start now.
Okay.
It did not start now, and the story is not only the story of the Gobrombarders. Let me remind us all, Armenians used to own lots of buildings in West Jerusalem, okay? Jaffa Road. If you walk in Jaffa Road, you see on the building, it's the Ipenkim, you see it, which means it's Armenians used to really own lots of buildings, and they were homeowners, they were landowners, and so on. What happened with the state of Israel is that they just took some areas and decided it belongs to the state, and it's about the governmentality of the area. We were left with the Armenian quarter and the Armenian convent. Now, the Armenian quarter was targeted since after the 1967 war and after what Israel calls it the reunification of Jerusalem. Of course, it's not reunified because the oppression of Palestinian Jerusalemites is hard at work. So Armenians are part of those Jerusalemite people that are threatened by the state, and their homes are also under the threat, exactly like Palestinians in other parts of Jerusalem, like in the Christian quarter, like in the Muslim quarter, and so on. Now, the problem with the Armenian quarter is that it is a strategic place. It's a very important strategic place. So Armenians allows the Israelis to cross and go to the Wailing Wall with no problems. If they will pass from Damascus Gate or from other areas, there are always conflicts and problems. Not one incident happened in our area. And that might not continue because Armenians are furious about the last situation whereby Jewish settlers are spitting on the crosses and are saying clearly, this area belongs to us. They are asking for the Armenians to leave. Now, the story of the last issue is that started when they were pressuring the Patriarchate to take land, to buy, to lease. So it started with the lease of the parking in front of the Norshenk, which is now called, the street is called Chabad Street. Of course, it was not called before Chabad Street. And by the way, Armenians, our area was not named. We did not have numbers until only 4 years ago. That tells you how bad was the situation. Mm-hmm. So they took over the parking lot in front of the Norshenk, and they convinced the convent, convinced the Patriarch that it's for public use. The Patriarch thought that, okay, let me, because they're pressuring to take land more, so he said, let me allow this area to be for public use so our people, the Armenians, can survive the pressure. Yeah?
Mainly try to appease them, basically.
Yeah, let's try to reach a compromise, yeah? I remember personally demonstrating in that street with my father-in-law, George Kevorkian, with lots of Armenians saying, no, we also want to be able to park there. So Teddy Kolik at that time, the mayor, said, no, it's for public use, you can use it. So they allowed it for 3, 4, 5 months. Afterward, Armenians were not allowed to park. So it was for Jews only. So the Armenian Patriarchate learned the lesson and said, we're not going to allow the lease. At that time, George Hentelian was the head of the property that worked with the Patriarch directly, and he refused to sign any deal because he noticed the pressure from the Israeli government to take over the different shops after the Govrum Bardes, plus the area of the Govrum Bardes all the way to the police station. Now, lately, there was major pressure, and that pressure, we do not know the details because the Israelis are not opening and exposing it, and the Patriarch is not exposing it. The Patriarch claims that it's a forgery, that he did not know, that the first claim that the Patriarchate stated is that the Govrum Bardes was packed with dirt, and that the municipality came and promised the Patriarch that they will remove the dirt from that parking lot, and they will be able to rent and use it for 10 years for free because it is really very costly. It's about 10 million shekels. So the Patriarch was wheeling and dealing with them on a deal to clean up the Govrum Bardes and maybe to allow the municipality to park their cars because the police station is there, and other Israelis would like to park the governmental entities to park there for free for 10 years. But so there was a wheel and deal. It seemed that in the middle of that discussion, something else happened. Plus, we need to remember that the Government Bardes, at least again, according to what we know from Hentalian, part of it is also belongs to a Muslim family. It's a waqf, it belongs to a Muslim family. So they were not sure whether it all belongs to the Armenian Patriarchate or it belongs partially to a Muslim family. So therefore the Israelis were trying to push more against the Armenian Patriarchate, telling them, okay, either you agree or we will confiscate it or something like that. But again, I did not see the fact. All I can tell you from my reading of the different plans, because the Ministry of Zoning and Planning have really zoned that area differently, and therefore there was pressure against the Armenian Patriarchate. Plus today with the transportation plan, they have a plan to have teleferic, which is a transportation that reaches the Wailing Wall, and the best place to stop all the cars and all the teleferic is the Zion Gate. And Zion Gate is where it also belongs to the Armenian Patriarchate. And I need you to remember that outside Zion Gate, we also have the Armenian cemetery, and there was an Armenian church that was built and that the Israeli Ministry of Planning and Zoning refused to give them the permits to finish that church. And this church is standing without finishing for over 20 years. So that should tell us as Armenians that the whole story is bigger than the Government Bardes. The story is about Judaizing the space. It's about turning it so-called to public use, and afterward it's only Jewish use, and Armenians are out.
What is this latest news where some allegation that the patriarch got paid, this other priest who's now deflocked, he was kicked out of the church, he took some bribe, he swears, I talked to him and he says, no, this is his pension, the last 20 years that he worked, he never took a penny, this is inaccurate information and so forth. I mean, that's what he claimed. And so what is this latest? Is it just people talk, or there's an American saying, when there's a smoke, there's a fire. So obviously there's some smoke here. Is there a fire?
Yes, well, listen, I'm a researcher that studies the politics and the policies of Israel in Jerusalem. This was their policies always, divide and rule, divide and rule. Whether the patriarch did it, whether his deputy did it, whether nobody have done that, whether the Israelis have found a way, whether they're pressured, whether they're manipulated, it's clear that they managed to divide the Armenian community. It's clear that they managed to create all sorts of rumors and chene that you hear here and there. I don't know who did what. All I know is that the same story happened in Silwan, where they said families have signed a lease to the settlers, and the other family members said no. What they're doing to us as Armenians, as Christians, as Palestinians, as people that are historically the natives of that land of Palestine, is that they're divide and rule. They're causing clear dispersal. To think about the people that are participating today in the demonstrations.
But with all due respect to you as a professor, when the king of Jordan, when the head of Palestinian Authority completely withdrew their support, that tells you something.
Of course.
I mean, the king cannot just make a decision.
Of course.
Clearly the patriarch, I mean, if that was me, let's assume today, you said, Mike Sarian, you took $3 million. I will come on TV, I'll come public and say, I never took any money from anybody. What's wrong in patriarch coming up and saying, none of it's true. I never took a penny. I never did anything illegal. I mean, if you're innocent, and you're a lawyer, with all due respect again, if I'm an innocent man, I say, I'm innocent. I am not guilty of anything. What's wrong in saying that?
Yeah, he
Very
should.
simple thing.
What he should do, and what the patriarchate should do, is opening the papers. And I
Exactly.
think we have a fact-finding mission that went there. But we need to remember that we cannot read it out of context. This is what I'm saying. It's not that they didn't do anything. They clearly, something happened. And the patriarch should have come openly and said
Come
to
clean,
the community.
as we say it in English.
No,
Come
come
clean.
tell the community, listen, there is. I think that he tried by punishing his deputy. Punishing a deputy is not a solution.
No.
The solution is to say, I made a mistake or I did not sign it. That we do not know. Unfortunately, we really do not know. I did not see the official papers. All I can tell you is that the Israeli narration clearly states they have given the area. It doesn't cross anybody's mind that a person, a leader, would give up 25% of the community's belonging. It's not his parents' belonging.
Exactly.
It's the community's
it's not his.
belonging.
It belongs
It's
to the
not
Armenian
his.
community.
And he should take. He did not get the approval of the synodos. Lots of priests were against him. 2 years ago, priests came out and told him, be careful. I think that the story is not complete, and we need to be careful.
How do we get a complete story?
Well, we are in the middle of a process. We need to, number one, remember that this is dividing us. We need to be careful. I don't want anybody to be hurt from the Armenians at this point. I really do not want a case of killing, of assassination. I feel that the Israelis can play here a major role in dividing more. So I think we need to be tolerant and to remember this is the policy. It happened in Haifa and Jaffa. It happened in all Palestine. It's happening to us. This is the story of Palestine. This is the story of what happened to Palestinians, whether Muslims, Christians, Armenians, and so on. We need to remember that their politics is dividing us. Now, I'm very, very content and happy. And I want really to go back. The genocide was not acknowledged. Artsakh war, Israel supported our enemies. Not only supported, they participated in the war. And it is well documented, not that they participated, they were sending soldiers, weaponry, technology, the drones that were attacking Armenians, and that caused us to lose the war was because of the Israeli support. So we need to remember that we do not count.
Can we
and
do
we should
anything
be
in
together
Israel?
more.
Can we, as a community, such a small community in Israel, can we do anything to change that Israeli hostile attitude towards Armenians and Armenia, especially when Jews went to a Holocaust themselves? Of all people, Israel and Jews should understand the Armenian plight, right? They went through Holocaust themselves. 6 million Jews were gone. So how could a nation that was built on survivors of Holocaust be against Armenians? I mean, this is mind-boggling to me. I cannot understand it because I never lived in Israel. But looking from outside, Israel should be very supportive of Armenia, should recognize Armenia's history,
But it's not.
and recognize the Armenian genocide, when the United States of America did already.
It's not. Israel is not in support of Armenia. Israel looks after its interest. Its interest is to support Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan is closer to Iran. They can, from there, check what is going on in Iran. Armenia, historically, they tried to be closer to Armenia 10, 15 years ago. The Armenian state was not interested. The Armenian state was very careful in its relationship with Israel. So it's a major political issue. And no, it's not about whether we were survivors of the genocide. They do not care. They do not care. What they care is, it's different issues here. It's, again, as I said, it's a settler colonial state, which means it's about the dispossession of land, the evictions of the native, and it's embedded in the logic of elimination. And the elimination of the Armenians is the easiest because Armenians were trying throughout the years to survive. And we're shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. You know, we try, like my 3 daughters went to the Armenian school. We tried to keep up the culture. We tried to keep up the history. We tried to keep up our voices. You see, when you walk in the old city of Jerusalem, you see that April 24th is mentioned in different places. We're trying, the Armenian flag, but our clergy is being hit. Our churches are being attacked. Our streets are being grabbed by a Jewish settler from Australia. The government is supporting. And the problem is that people, and the patriarch probably himself, they're afraid of the Israeli politics because they can kick them out. So yes, Abbas and King Abdullah are aware of what is going on, and they are trying to help. But we Armenians should speak with a louder voice and should tell the story differently. Should tell the story of a small community that managed to survive for years together. And we should not accept as a divide and rule, because this will divide us. We should work together, one hand. This is what brought us together. Listen, my love to the Armenian culture and heritage and history comes from what I have learned from my mother-in-law, a survivor of the Armenian genocide, and the way I saw my daughters growing up. When the teacher that taught them Armenian dance would stand on the table and would ask them, Ovik tuk, they would say, Haim yes, Kachvantanin Tornem yes. I think that we need to preserve this collectivity, this connectivity to the land. We belong to the land, we belong to the area. They cannot erase the Armenian culture. It's part of the culture of the place, of the space, of the land. Our churches, our kids, our music, our scouts, our youth groups, and only together and not by fighting with each other.
Thank you so much for uniting words. That means a lot to us as Armenians, and we need those wonderful words that you just elaborately described us. Thank you again for your presence. We wish you well. We wish your family well, and be safe and a safe flight back home.
Thank you.
Սիրելի պայգամներ, ասցվող գպագենք մեր հայտակիրը եւ պիտի հանդիպենք նորեն, խոսենք ուրիշ թեմայի մասին առաջիկա օրերում մեջ։ Շնորհակալ ենք, գիշեր բարի։